Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. This is an extremely important live stream. Hit subscribe right now to this channel. If for some reason you get kicked off the live stream, just log back on or refresh the screen. Sometimes that happens. I have no idea why. But hit subscribe. We're going to take a trip down memory lane. And I think that a lot of people on the left, especially on YouTube, and especially in American media, need to learn some history. Remember who Joseph McCarthy was and what he did to the country. I learned at a young age that accusing people of being communist was a Red Scare tactic that was on the wrong side of history. So Joe McCarthy, Republican, was on the wrong side of history. Let's just say communists did infiltrate some parts of the government here and there. The manner in which he accused innocent people and tried to ruin people's lives is very similar to the Mueller probe special counsel. It's very similar to what Democrats are doing all the time on social media. Bray, thank you so very much for starting it off. Luke, Saint, Martin, the two best moderators in all of YouTube. Eric, H526. Eric and Luke, thank you so very much for being amazing moderators. JG, everyone here. Robert, Kristen, thank you so very much. David, everyone here, thank you. So, we need to remember what people like Joe McCarthy did about 70 years ago now to innocent Americans, innocent American citizens. Of course, the live stream is going through, yet again, another issue. Dean Diefendorf! Dean in South Beach is time. It's about time with Durham. Yes, Dean, thank you. Thank you so very much, Dean Diefendorf. Thank you. So, before we get started with the Durham Probe Special Counsel, I want us to hear, Dean, thank you so very much. Bray, thank you. Like I said, if you get kicked off of the live stream, please go ahead and and log back on or just refresh the screen to my super chat. I cannot thank you enough. I can't do these live streams without you. If you enjoy the live streams, your super chat is greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Let's get started. So I want to go ahead and I want to read and give people a history lesson because for some reason, ladies and gentlemen, we've ignored American history when media, media, Democrats, morally superior, liberals everywhere have ignored history. These were the same liberal Democrats who spoke out against Joseph McCarthy and McCarthyism and the Red Scare and accusing people in Hollywood and people within government, even George Marshall and even Eisenhower and the military. Robert, thank you. These liberal Democrats once upon a time opposed Joseph McCarthy, McCarthyism, Red Scare tactics. They've now adopted all of this. Dean, thank you so very much. Bray, thank you. To my super chat, thank you. So if you look at history, we're gonna hear some some of the hearings, the McCarthy hearings, and we're going to hear the famous "Have you no decency, sir?" and that'll be in a couple of minutes. And then we'll eventually get to the Durham Probe Special Counsel motions, which state that Trump was indeed being spied on and under surveillance while he was president. Yes, it's true, ladies and gentlemen. In early 2017, while he was president. And so the only rebuttal they have, well, it wasn't while he was president. That's, of course, false, incorrect, not true. Trump was being spied on, and this is President's Day. He was under surveillance by people paid, by people who were being paid by his direct political rivals. And government agents and government officials were in on it also. 3 people have been indicted. They were indicted specifically because they were paid to gather information, derogatory information on Trump. And they got this information while he was president as well. And they relayed the information to government agencies after he was president. And so the Durham probe special counsel indictment of Sussman and the 2 motions that he filed after the indictment state categorically, without a shadow of a doubt, that McCarthy-era tactics were being used against Donald J. Trump. You might not like his personality, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching this YouTube channel, you might not like his personality. You might not like Trump's personality. But that's not an excuse to allow McCarthy-era tactics. And you can see the lack of intelligence. You can see the inability to comprehend, to understand basic American history, the tenets of American history, things we learned not long ago about the Red Scare and McCarthy-era tactics and accusing people of being communist. And now the same thing is going on. If you have an opinion or a viewpoint about foreign policy, who you're going to vote for, well, that's Russian propaganda. Russian propaganda. Brian, hello, thank you. Cheryl, hello, thank you. So really quickly, before we get to the actual newsreels of McCarthy basically treating people the way Democrats and social media algorithms now are tailored to appeasing Democrats and silencing anything considered Russian propaganda. This is a McCarthy-era tactic, but from a cyber perspective. What they've done, ladies and gentlemen, is Democrats can't possibly debate because they'd lose any debate. They usually lose debates when it comes to the economy, when it comes to foreign policy. They don't really have much to stand on. Biden, for example, has a terrible record in terms of foreign policy. So what they do, their best defense is a good offense. They'll accuse others of being sympathetic to America's adversaries while at the same time refusing to talk about the origins of you-know-what, presiding over Russia about being about to invade Ukraine. So, all of these things are taking place while Democrats are in office. Record high inflation. We're seeing a slow-motion stock market crash. We're about to head into a recession. So all of these are taking place. All of these horrible things are taking place while mashed potato brains Biden is president. Gee, ever wonder, maybe, just maybe, that they were projecting everything they accused Trump of? Oh, just maybe that they were the ones who were guilty? Okay, with money from Uranium One into a foundation and Hunter's laptop showing obvious pay-to-play schemes. Do you think just maybe they were the ones who were corrupt? The epicenter of corruption 20 years ago was the Bush administration. The epicenter of corruption today has been the second half of President Obama's administration and the administration of mashed potato brains, Biden. Definitely not Trump, because if you're investigated that with that much energy and passion and enthusiasm by your direct political rivals, and still nothing is found, see, they would indict Trump if they could. They just don't have anything. Comey covered up the Clinton email probe. There was top secret and special access program intelligence, but he said there was no intent to use private servers. The intention, obviously, inherent to owning private servers, is, of course, hiding your information. But here, as Senator McCarthy at first did not distinguish himself, however, as the Cold War gripped the United States, a pervasive fear of communism known as the Second Red Scare came over the United States. McCarthy quickly exacerbated this fear to his own advantage, claiming that hundreds of members of the United States State Department were communist or communist sympathizers. Many in the U.S. public believed McCarthy's claims, although it is clear that he exaggerated the number of communists serving in the U.S. government. It is also clear that he knowingly falsely accused numerous people of having communist sentiments. They knowingly falsely accused Trump of being installed or a puppet of the Kremlin. This, ladies and gentlemen, everything they did to Donald Trump, and you know what? Just because you don't like his personality doesn't mean you have to treat him in the manner Joe McCarthy treated other people. Everything they did to Trump, Joseph McCarthy did to people 70 years ago in the Senate. Or in the Congress. So he knowingly falsely accused numerous people of having communist sentiments. In response to fears of communism, the state of Ohio created the Ohio Un-American Activities Committee to determine the number of communists in the state and to limit their influence in political and economic matters. And you're seeing what's taking place, ladies and gentlemen, by good, morally superior liberals, Trudeau in Canada, freezing accounts, all of these things. Social media algorithms, suspending the New York Post for breaking the story about Hunter's laptop. I mean, you see this. And the reason they were able to successfully prevent the story, suspend the New York Post's account, was they said, well, it was hacked by Russia. Everything is just hacked by Russia. Okay? Everything is Russia's fault. David Cook, hello. Thank you, David. Everything, they just blame Russia, and they do so in a mindless manner. JG, hello, JG. They do so in a mindless manner. And you have YouTube pundits who have millions sub. They're a millennial CNN. I call them the millennial CNN or millennial MSNBC. And they accuse people of being sympathetic to Russia, spreading Russian propaganda, and, undermining our democracy. And it's exactly what Joe McCarthy did. And you were going to hear him right now, ladies and gentlemen. So we are, by the way, heading towards a recession. Bitcoin's going to get to 10,000. Unfortunately, the Dow is going to get to 20,000. NASDAQ could probably get to 8,000 or below. S&P could be 2,800 by the time this is all said and done. And we're entering not only a bear market, but we're going to have a devastating stock market crash, and we're seeing it in slow motion. I predicted this in my Federalist article. And the reason we're experiencing all of this from skyrocketing inflation and interest rate hikes that are going to tank the economy and the market is because Democrats decided to. And remember, we had around 2% inflation with Trump. Less than 2% in 2019. Setlick 3, hello. Democrats said we needed to end economic activity, therefore pushing fossil fuels to record highs. Oil is going to approach over $100 a barrel. And Vladimir Putin, he basically knows exactly what he's doing. This isn't rocket science. He can park 100,000 to 200,000 soldiers on the borders between Ukraine and Russia, and just simply threaten to invade every single day, have Biden and NATO and media and the West overreact every single day, push the price of oil to over $100 a barrel, and, make sure he gets concessions that he wants. And this is all taking place under Biden's watch. So you have to ask, if you abide by, and I agree with you. Listen, Bitcoin, I think, is going to get back to, when it goes to 10, it'll get, back up to 60 or 100,000. Who knows how eventually it's not going to go away, but I think that the market crash that we're going to see, that we're experiencing in slow motion, I do think that everything is going to tank and collapse, and it's directly the fault of the Democratic Party. But all Putin has to do is park his soldiers there, and he can decide either to invade or to pretend he's about to invade and get as many concessions as he wants. And it's not just about Ukraine. There are other issues as well. He wants other assurances as well. So, Setlick3 Gaming, thank you, Setlick3 Gaming. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much, Setlick3 Gaming. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Thank you so very much. So, it's also clear that Joseph McCarthy knowingly falsely accused numerous people of having communist sentiments in response to fears of communism. Okay, so many politicians refuse to stand up to McCarthy, just like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Richard Burr. They never stood up to Nancy Pelosi or Adam Schiff or anyone within the Democratic Party that pushed lies. Clinton, who Madam Secretary purchased all of these lies. She just purchased a myth. And now you have MSNBC and CNN and the Washington Post and the New York Times, who have basically been a more palatable version of Joe McCarthy. They engaged in their own Red Scare, and they did so because, you know what? They used the word dangerous. But the people who would tear apart democracy faster than anyone else are the morally superior liberals, and you see it north. You see it in the country to our north. You see what's taking place there. You cannot. I mean, how you have how this is being allowed in a leading democracy where you can take people's bank accounts and, imagine if Trump did that. What Trudeau is doing is infinitely worse than Trump was ever accused of, which we never did. A lot of the things, clearing Lafayette Square, that never happened. A lot of the things Trump was accused of never happened. Oh, he said he was going to, take the military out. No. What's happening north of this country is infinitely worse than anything they accused Trump of doing, which he never did. I mean, you're seeing who the authoritarians are, people. You know who the authoritarians are. They're the people who want to silence you and accuse you of being Russian operatives or sympathizers or spreading Russian propaganda. And they have zero evidence other than a high to moderate confidence assessment by Clapper and Brennan. There was never any evidence pointing to the Central Intelligence Agency or the National Security Agency is not evidence. That is not evidence. Saying that Russian intelligence officials were indicted is not evidence. Okay, because Company 1 is the only reason that they were indicted, and Company 1 within that indictment was paid by Clinton and the DNC. So, McCarthy even accused the United States Army of providing refuge for communists from senators from the senators' relentless pursuit. McCarthy conducted television hearings into communists in the Army. McCarthy acted in a belligerent manner to the witnesses, and his actions convinced many in the U.S. that the senator was acting inappropriately and making false accusations. McCarthy's power quickly disappeared. And, so although the United States condemned him for conduct unbecoming of a senator, McCarthy continued to serve in the Senate until he passed away in 1957. Now, in 1954, Joe McCarthy condemned by Senate. So, the U.S. Senate votes 65-22 to condemn Joe McCarthy for conduct unbecoming of a senator. And he went after people, including Harry S. Truman and George C. Marshall. So not Eisenhower, but Truman. These and other equally shocking accusations prompted the Senate to form a special committee headed by Senator Miller Tidings of Maryland to investigate the matter. The committee found little to substantiate McCarthy's charges, but McCarthy nevertheless touched a nerve in the American public, and during the next 2 years he made increasingly sensational charges, even attacking President Harry S. Truman, respected former Secretary of State George C. Marshall. Okay, so in the early months of 1954, McCarthy, who had already lost the support of much of his party because of his controversial tactics, finally overreached himself when he accused several U.S. Army officers of communist subversion. Republican President Dwight D. Eisenhower pushed for an investigation into McCarthy's charges, and the televised hearings exposed the senator as a reckless and excessive tyrant who never produced a proper documentation for any of his claims. And you will hear this right now. Climax in the hearing came on June 9th when Joseph N. Welch, special attorney for the Army, responded to... Okay, hold on one second. Responded to a McCarthy attack on a member of his law firm by facing the senator and tearfully declaring, "Until this moment, Senator, I think I never really gauged your cruelty or your recklessness. Let us not... Okay, you have done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you no sense of decency?" And so you'll hear that. You'll hear that in a couple of minutes. The crowded room burst into a spontaneous applause. So you have that now, ladies and gentlemen. Democrats have learned nothing from American history. All they learned is that you can accuse, you don't like Trump, you have control of the media narrative. The Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, BuzzFeed, the Daily Beast, New Yorker, Vanity Fair, Esquire, Rolling Stone, New York Magazine, The Nation, Mother Jones, and other publications, the Los Angeles Times. You pretty much have all of media as just one entity. It's basically state-run media because you have a whole lot of people who just don't like Trump, and so they've accused him of being installed by the Kremlin. They accused him of defeating Clinton because Russia wanted Trump, even though they can't find one person who saw a Facebook ad. And they say that the Russians hacked the DNC to inform the country that Bernie Sanders was cheated. Thus proving to the world that Democrats can't even run a functioning... Nina, thank you. The Democrats can't even run a functioning primary. They can't even run a primary. And then they pontificate about democracy. They don't even have the ability to run a functioning primary. Yet they will pontificate about Russian propaganda. And everybody from Tulsi Gabbard to Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump to anyone who disagrees. Even Hunter's laptop was an example of deception by the Kremlin. And all they do, it's pretty simple. They're so utterly corrupt from accepting millions upon millions into Madam Secretary's foundation, from Uranium One, to multi-million dollar deals, hundreds of millions of dollars in deals for Hunter and the big man, his father Joe, where the laptop showed the world. And he's going to get impeached based on that laptop. They're going to impeach Joe Biden, and it's not going to be difficult to do. And this time they won't impeach him because of they won't impeach a president because of an ellipsis. They'll go ahead and just read off every single incriminating email from Hunter. Okay? And it's interesting too because they say, well, that we don't know if that's Hunter's laptop, while at the same time promulgating the Steele dossier, Alpha Bank links, and every other absurd, nonsensical, completely irrational, baseless claim against Trump that they purchased. So they demand categorical proof. They demand categorical proof when they're accused of something, And when they're doing when they're making the accusations, well, we have to investigate. So let's listen to Joe McCarthy. And this is Have You No Sense of Decency. We'll just read this really quickly. And you'll actually see this right now. So we'll get to that newsreel. But have you know, June 9th, 1954, Wisconsin, Republican Senator Joseph McCarthy rocketed to public attention in 1950 with his allegations that hundreds of communists had infiltrated the State Department and other federal agencies. These charges struck a particular responsive note at a time of deepening national anxiety about the spread of world communism. So, in the spring of 1954, McCarthy picked a fight with the U.S. Army, charging lax security at a top-secret Army facility. The Army responded that the Senator has sought preferential treatment. Okay. The Army hired Boston lawyer Joseph Welch to make its case. At a session on June 9, 1954, McCarthy charged that one of Welch's attorneys had ties to a communist organization. And so, as an amazed television audience looked on, Welch responded with the immortal lines that ultimately ended McCarthy's career. Until this moment, Senator, I think I really never gauged your cruelty and recklessness. Let us not, okay, you've done enough. Have you no sense of decency? So you could have stated that same, have you no sense of decency? I mean, every single day of Trump's administration pertaining to how they treated him. Media, Democrats, people like Michael Sussman, who was indicted, and Kevin Kleinsmith, who was indicted, and the Steel Subsource, who was indicted, and Peter Strzok, who set up and framed Trump, I mean, endlessly, and then just had, I guess, a nice lunch with Madam Secretary. I mean, it's interesting. He was the agent, Peter Strzok, who interrogated, quote-unquote, Clinton, which, of course, was not an interrogation at all. And he's the one who helped set up Michael Flynn. He was one of the agents that said Michael Flynn didn't lie, but he was the one who set up Michael Flynn. He was also the one who helped rewrite James Comey's press conference speech. So Comey was going to use the words gross negligence, which was 18 U.S. Code 793F. So that was the Espionage Act that anyone else would have been indicted under, because nobody knows how Clinton removed top secret intelligence from special access program intelligence from secure government locations, but apparently Comey wasn't smart enough to ask how that happened. So anyway, you see this now. It is so ingrained into the minds of morally superior liberal Democrats. I mean, you see this now. And so you'll hear this. I mean, everybody, like all the millennial CNN, liberal YouTube channels with 1 million to 4 million subs, everybody on MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, they're all completely just simply brainwashed to believe things that are not true. There's no evidence that Russia wanted Trump. That was an absurd hoax that they believed because they couldn't possibly accept that Clinton lost to Trump. They couldn't possibly accept it. And I told everybody that Clinton would lose. Nobody listened. Just like I told everybody that the stock market's going to crash, and we're seeing it in slow motion. But we'll unfortunately see the 2,000 to 3,000 point drops. Just like I told everybody the Durham probe's going to heat up. So I've been spot on a bunch of things, but let's listen to this.
May I say that Mr. Wells talks about this being cruel and reckless. He was just baiting. He has been baiting Mr. Cohen here for hours, requesting that Mr. Cohen, before sundown, get out of any department of the government anyone who was serving the communist cause. Now, I just give this man's record, and I want to say, Mr. Welch, that it has been labeled long before he became a member, as early as 1944.
Senator, may we not drop this? We know he belongs to the Lawyers Guild. And Mr. Cole nods his head at me. I did you, I think, no personal injury, Mr. Cole.
No, sir.
I meant to do you no personal injury. And if I did, I beg your pardon.
So you see what's taking place. Monique Smith! I ain't late to the party, but obsessed with Durham. Thank you, Monique Smith. Thank you. You know what? It's important. Monique, we're actually giving a little history lesson here on why Durham, on why it's important that we look at U.S. history to kind of explain what's going on with the Durham probe. And Francis, thank you. Monique Smith, thank you so very much. It's important to look at U.S. history and ask yourself, who's the McCarthy era political side? It's the wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats, Monique, who call everyone they disagree with Russian operatives, or accuse everybody under the sun of spreading Russian propaganda, just like Joseph McCarthy did. They are the new McCarthy-era Red Scare political party. And 70 years ago, it was a Republican, Joe McCarthy. Now it's the mindless, they're almost like androids. They just regurgitate nonsense. And they just say, well, Trump worked with Russia, and they have no evidence to back that up. Monique, thank you so very much. Thank you. Rest Galaxy, thank you. Monique, thank you so very, very much. Rest Galaxy, thank you so very much. Thank you very much, Monique, as always. Let's continue. And you will hear the famous line, have you no decency?
Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
I know this hurts you, Mr. Welch.
I'll say it hurts.
May I say, Mr. Chairman, as a point of personal privilege, I'd like to finish this.
Senator, I think it hurts you too, sir.
I'd like to finish this. I know Mr. Cohen would rather not have me go into this.
So, McCarthy was accusing somebody within this man's law firm of being, part of the Communist Party, which wasn't true. Okay. But see, you have to understand, this is ingrained in American culture and American history. We have a deep well of fear and paranoia pertaining to accusing others of being sympathetic or communist or working alongside Putin in Russia. Democrats have zero concept of history. I know people, former friends who have said to me, oh, you're on the wrong side of history. Well, they must not know anything about U.S. history. Who is the side that is calling people disloyal? Who is the political side accusing people of spreading Russian propaganda simply because a viewpoint contradicts the liberal democratic viewpoint or ideology, or, simply because people, whether it's Tulsi Gabbard or Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump or the Green Party or anyone who disagrees with Democrats, those people are called accused of spreading Russian propaganda. The problem is that you're allowed to have a different viewpoint from the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party has never proven that Russia wanted Trump. Not one shred of evidence. And evidence is not an appeal to authority. So that's not evidence to base the claim of working or spreading Russian propaganda. You simply can't say, well, the Senate confirmed an assessment. It's a semantic game. You can't say the assessment, which is just a viewpoint, a hunch, a guess, has been confirmed. Our intelligence community has been wrong on everything from the Bay of Pigs to the Gulf of Tonkin to WMD to Facebook ads to now, Russia's going to invade on the 16th. Well, it's now the 21st. They haven't invaded. They're wrong on pretty much everything. And yet media worships them as if they were like this oracle. And so they're definitely not Nostradamus. You know, you can throw a dart at a whole bunch of stocks and pick better stocks than the intel community could. They're not prescient, and they definitely can't predict the future, and they definitely can't guarantee anything. So the DHS report, and Monique, thank you so very much to my super chat. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you, Monique, as always. When you have liberal YouTubers and social media algorithms on Twitter and Facebook, I mean, these things are being manipulated to further the viewpoint of one political side. And when news is considered trustworthy if it furthers one political side, you've entered not just a McCarthy era, you've entered this Orwellian dystopian nightmare. But Democrats and morally superior liberals and the people who accuse anyone they disagree with of being operatives of another country are too stupid to learn basic tenets, to learn, just a cursory knowledge of U.S. history. I mean, you have to understand what Joseph McCarthy did to understand what Democrats are doing now. This happened before in our country. This happened before in our country. And it's been happening for the past 5 to 6 years. And not enough people make the correlation between Joseph McCarthy and Adam Schiff or Nancy Pelosi or Clinton or MSNBC or CNN. But listen to this again.
I beg your pardon. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
I know this hurts you, Mr. Welch.
I'll say it
may I
hurts.
say, Mr. Chairman, as a point of personal...
So let's hear what Joseph McCarthy, how he responds to being accused of having no sense of decency left. So this is typical Peter Strzok, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper. I mean, these people set up and framed Trump because they believed he could be a Russian operative. They were fearful. They really were so fearful. It's like you cannot investigate or accuse anyone simply because you have a hunch. You need evidence in the form of a money trail, Hunter, Clinton, all of these people, emails, okay, DNC emails, Hunter's laptop, the foundation emails. We can go on forever. You need some kind of evidence. And the evidence is all basically pointing to Democratic Party corruption. And then you have these absurd fact checks that don't even check any facts. Their goal is only to be the last word in an argument. And then they'll appeal to authority. And the authority they'll appeal to happens to agree with them. So they're not going to appeal to any authority that disagrees with them. So you're not going to get Victor Davis Hanson, or Andrew McCarthy of the National Review, or attorneys or historians that have a more conservative viewpoint. You will get historians or legal experts or other experts that always have the same viewpoint as Reuters or the Associated Press or the Washington Post or the New York Times. Then you'll get, well, that's it. We've ended the discussion. The fact check has shown that Trump is wrong, or these conservatives are wrong, or this expert is wrong if he disagrees with the prevailing mentality. Definitely in this world, be the 10th dentist. You have this really, idiotic notion that, you don't want to be, 9 out of 10 dentists, you don't want to be the 10th dentist. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do want to be the 10th dentist, especially when you're dealing with organizations that have been wrong since the Bay of Pigs. Especially when you're dealing with people who believe dossiers. Especially when you're dealing with people who are so apoplectic, they disown friends because they don't have the emotional intelligence. You understand, these people, the wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats, many of them simply don't have the emotional intelligence. They don't have the capacity in terms of their psychological makeup. They don't have the character to actually have a discussion or debate with somebody they disagree with. That's why they have to disown people, because it's become a religion. Most of them have done away with any concept of God or religion, so their religion is politics, and they get their information from the Washington Post or New York Times, and they think they're being educated. But they don't understand they're being lied. It's a lie by omission. What media does is they lie by omission. If you listen to Tim Pool or Styx or Anthony Bryan Logan or Brandon Tatum or a whole bunch of people, okay, HB, a whole bunch of people, a black conservative patriot who's awesome and is so kind and always says, hello on my channel or on my comment section. It's an honor for me. And so if you listen to these people, and hopefully I'd like to think if you listen to this channel also, you get a greater perspective of what's going on. If you just read the Washington Post, you will get a lie by omission. They'll tell the truth. The Washington Post tells the truth. The New York Times tells the truth. BuzzFeed tells the truth. Okay? All of these publications tell the truth, but they tell only one portion of the truth. They don't tell all of the truth. And that's called a lie. That's a deceptive, that's a way, it's a manner of deceiving others. They will only give you a certain portion of the truth. And that's the thing. Agent Pepsi 1, hello. H.A., Godless Democrat. Agent Pepsi 1, thank you. Eric, hello. So let's continue. Agent Pepsi, thank you.
I'd like to finish this.
Senator, I think it hurts you too, sir.
I'd like to finish this. I know Mr. Cohen would rather not have me go into this. I intend to, however, and Mr. Welch talks about any sense of decency. It seems that Mr. Welch is pained so deeply, he thinks it's improper for me to give the record, the Communist Front record, of the man whom he wanted to foist upon this committee. But it doesn't pain him at all. There's no pain in his chest about the attempt to destroy the reputation and take the jobs away from the young men who are working in my committee. And Mr. Welch, if I have said anything here which is untrue, then tell me. I have heard you and everyone else talk so much about laying the truth upon the table that when I heard a completely phony Mr. Welch, I've listened to you now for a long time, to say now before sundown you must get these people out of government. So that I just want to have it very clear that you were not so serious about that when you tried to recommend this man for this committee. But the point is,
So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. Did you hear? Were you able to hear and see everything? Because for some reason, it stopped. The video stopped playing. Did you hear and see everything, ladies and gentlemen? Let me know. Let me know if you could hear and see everything. Let me know, ladies and gentlemen. Could you hear and see everything? I will wait for the first response. Is this mic on? Let me know if you could hear or see everything. And I'll still wait for the first response. Could you hear? For the love of God. Okay, you don't. Okay, so let me go ahead and try it back again. 50-50. Okay, so let me try it back again.
Mr. Cole nods his head at me. I did you, I think, no personal injury, Mr. Cole.
no, sir.
I meant to do you no personal injury. And if I did, I beg your pardon. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
I know this hurts you, Mr. Welch.
I'll
But
say it
may
hurts.
I say, Mr. Chairman, as a point of personal privilege,
Mr.
I'd like to finish this.
Senator, I think it hurts you too.
So I don't know why that happens. I don't know what's going on, but all right. So I don't know why that happens. Maybe if it goes on too long, but here, let's just see this.
These people out of government. So that I just want to have it very clear that you were not so serious about that when you tried to recommend this man for this committee. But the point is, Mr.
Chair, I'd like to say again that he does not believe Mr. Welch recommended Mr. Fisher as counsel for this committee because he had, through his office, all the recommendations which were made and does not recall any of them coming from Mr. Welch, and that would include Mr. Fisher.
Well, let me ask Mr. Welch.
So you can see that he's just accusing. He's just trying to accuse somebody who's not a communist of being, part of the Communist Party. This is just one example of him. He went after George Marshall, okay, who was one of the greatest Americans ever. And Truman and Eisenhower couldn't stand him. So eventually people realized he was just trying his best. He was just trying his best to get people to think that. Thank you, Monique. Thank you. I think it's working now again. That he was crusading against communism, when in reality he was just accusing people who were innocent. And then they say, well, you know what? Some people had infiltrated. It's like, yes, that's true at the time. Also in the UK as well. But you don't just go and engage in this kind of purge, which is actually what does take place in communist countries. The issue of a purge, that's the issue. And that's what Democrats have wanted to do with Trump. Everything Joe McCarthy did, Democrats tried to do against Trump.
You brought him down, did you not, to act as your assistant?
Mr. McCarthy, I will not discuss this further with you. You have sat.
You brought him down, did you not, to act as your assistant?
Mr. McCarthy, I will not discuss this further with you. You have sat within 6 feet of me and could have asked me about Fred Fisher. You have seen fit to bring it out, and if there is a God in heaven, it will do neither you nor your cause any good. I will not discuss it further. I will not ask Mr. Cohn any more witnesses. You, Mr. Chairman, may, if you will, call the next witness.
C. Murph, thank you so very much. C. Murph, thank you. Thank you so very much. They're trying to make it difficult for you. 5th time trying to send this. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. So, thank you so very much, C. Murph. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. Agent Pepsi 1. I'm a Soviet agent, the Russians. Agent Pepsi 1, thank you. Thank you, Monique. C. Murph, thank you so very much. Yeah, I mean, it's important that, when we get to the Durham probe, it is important, ladies and gentlemen, to look at U.S. history. And you couldn't really see, C. Murph, thank you so much. It's difficult. It's difficult. Let's see if we can just finish this up. So I'm trying my best to, show you this. So, ladies and gentlemen, you gotta ask yourself, have we evolved as a society? No, we have not. C. Murph, thank you again. No, we have not. We absolutely have not. Because you look and it's the same thing. People are being accused of the same things, but just in a different manner. C. Murph, thank you so very much. Thank you. Greatly, greatly appreciated. And you look, and the Durham Probe Special Counsel is basically an investigation into our past. It's not just the Mueller probe. It's not investigating the Mueller probe, which it's not only investigating the Mueller probe, which it is investigating. It's also an investigation into why a person like Joe McCarthy, how was he able at that moment, ladies and gentlemen, to get away with what he did, to engage in the activity that he engaged in? And it's important to ask those questions. CNN, MSNBC, Millennial CNN on YouTube, You have people who are saying that any disagreement is Russian propaganda. Well, it really doesn't matter if a viewpoint aligns with Vladimir Putin. If it's good for the United States of America, it's good for the United States of America. Endless wars, I don't care who wants us to refrain from a nuclear confrontation. That's actually the right thing to do. It really doesn't matter. Like saying that simply accusing somebody of furthering the interests of another country is not an argument. And you could actually make a case that Democrats are far more compromised when it comes to that. Look at where they get their money. Look at how they obtain. Look at why they were so petrified and so unwilling to talk about the origins of you-know-what. Now, that correlated with the interests of another country, didn't it? Didn't refraining or not talking about how you-know-what got started, didn't that correlate with the interests of another political party? Of course it did. Of course it did. And so this is a 70 years later, Democrats were able to resuscitate a Red Scare McCarthy era movement or tactic. They were able to resuscitate it. They were able to pull it up from the dustbin of history, brush it off, and they were able to just utilize it against Donald Trump. Because they couldn't, look, you couldn't, if you were a Democrat in 2016, you couldn't admit two things. You couldn't admit that the Democrats cheated Bernie Sanders, and also you couldn't admit that you had lost to Donald Trump. You couldn't admit that. There's not a shred of evidence. There's not a shred of evidence at all that Russia wanted Trump ever. There was never even a tiny bit of evidence. Pointing to intelligence reports is meaningless because if you point to John Ratcliffe and what he was saying, then you can't even talk about the things that John Ratcliffe was saying on YouTube. And he was the director of national intelligence. So it's like everyone should remember that the Durham Probe Special Counsel has an uphill climb. And I told you, did I not tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Did I not tell you? A lot of the things that I've been saying have been accurate. I haven't been right on everything the past 4 or 5 years, but I've been pretty much spot on a lot of things. I would say I've been right about most things. And I'm telling you also, this is a fleeting moment in history. You will not... Okay, Democrats have squandered 4 years in Congress. They can't even pass a Build Back Better. They can't even pass Biden's signature legislation. They can't even pass Biden's signature legislation. Deborah, thank you. Because nobody on the left ever talked about infrastructure or childcare prior to, I mean, they did, but not really. It wasn't something that they were really obsessed with or interested in, or it wasn't something that the left in the United States really cared about. They cared about Medicare for all, single payer, Green New Deal legislation, which Biden said he's trying to address climate change, but it's like, it still wasn't what the Green New Deal talked about, which they were embarrassed to vote on. One of the things McConnell did that was kind of interesting is he said, "Okay, vote on the Green New Deal. Go ahead and vote on it." And they didn't want to vote on it. Here, let's just really quickly. Let's see. So then they say, why McConnell is voting a whole is this is hilarious. It is hilarious. Why Mitch McConnell is voting is holding a vote on the Green New Deal. The whole point of the Green New Deal is for it to pass Congress. It wasn't. They try to say it was, a way to get people inspired. No, it wasn't. The premise is that the world is going to end in 10 to 20 years. So Mitch McConnell called their bluff. If you really think so, why don't you just vote on it? If you don't like the Green New Deal, I will have a vote. That's fine. Go ahead and vote on it. Go ahead, make my day. Just like Dirty Harry, make my day. Do you feel lucky? I do. The sweeping resolution. It wasn't even legislation. The sweeping resolution to tackle climate change aggressively was promoted by, McConnell now wants to put Senate Democrats on record about what they supported. Hilarious. Hilarious. They didn't even vote on it. And some Democrats voted against it. It's absolutely hilarious. And then you get the same thing. Republicans want to deny climate change. You didn't even vote, Democrats, on your own Green New Deal resolution. I don't even think AOC voted on this, which is really hilarious. I don't even think. So Ocasio-Cortez and Markey have already had an embarrassing setback to the resolution via Ocasio-Cortez's office, which released a fact sheet inconsistent with the actual legislative text. Of course, it's always the whole thing is a bunch of nonsense. They use the words indigenous people, and then they say, oh, well, everyone needs to drive an electric car eventually. Not explaining, and I wrote about this in The Federalist, this is my first article in The Federalist, that electric car vehicles rely on lithium, cobalt, these metals that are mined by indigenous people. Monique Smith, the Green New Deal. Yeah, go for it. Monique, thank you. Monique, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Monique. Greatly appreciated. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so very much. So they've done nothing. Thank you, Monique. Thank you so very, very much. Greatly, greatly appreciated. And then you get, this is hilarious, how they spin this. Ocasio-Cortez roasted Mitch McConnell after Green New Deal stunt vote. What? You mean you don't want to vote on the resolution? I thought do you not think the world's going to end, or do you think the world's going to end? Which one is it? This is why, they don't believe anything that they claim to believe. They don't believe anything. It's all for public relations purposes. That's it. Had stern words. And so, what does this even mean? The Senate vote is a perfect example of that kind of superficial approach to government. You mean voting? Really? That's a big problem. What McConnell's doing is he's trying to rush this bill to the floor without a hearing, without any markups, without working through committee. No, this is hilarious. But he doesn't want to save our planet. No. This was a resolution, legislation that you're pushing for. You don't believe any of it. You don't think any of it's feasible. But you're going to pontificate and preach and condemn and judge. So that's all they've squandered 4 years. Tell me what they did. Nothing. They've done nothing in 4 years except investigate Trump. Zero. And if you say, well, they passed this legislation, like, well, okay, any Democrat would pass certain legislation, whether it's government funding for that. They're going to try to say, well, we attempted to alleviate poverty. They don't tell you they caused the poverty. We had record low unemployment under Trump and less than 2% inflation in 2019. And then they pushed in the beginning of 2020 to end all economic activity. Monique Smith, thank you so very much, Monique. So kind of you. C. Murph, hello, the Green New Deal, where money will be made for recycled plastic straw. And cars will run on mind power. Exactly. C. Murph, thank you. Thank you. I mean, they don't believe C. Murph and Monique. Thank you so very much. They don't believe in any of it. They're the ones who don't believe in their own nonsense. You could have you have this resolution that you say is going to save the planet, but you won't vote on it. And then they say, "Oh, well, he's trying to get Democrats to vote on a bill before the committees look at it." It's like, well, okay, then focus on how long is it going to take you? 5, 6, 7 months? They should have focused on it. The world's going to end. But you see, they will tell you, climate change, I believe, is very, very important. But it's apparently not the existential issue they claim it is, because Senate rejects, this is hilarious, in a 57-0 vote. Wow. Look at that. No, not even AOC voted for her own resolution. Not even AOC. Lord Almighty. Not even AOC. The final vote was 57 against and no one for the plan, with 43 Democrats voting present. Not even AOC voted. Laughing dog. Is it me, or does Joey's mumbles make more sense? Laughing dog. You know what's interesting? It's like Monique Seamurph, laughing dog. I'm telling you, their whole thing, their entire lives, ladies and gentlemen, their entire lives revolve around one maxim. At least Trump isn't tweeting. Laughing dog, thank you so very much. I mean, I agree with you. At least Trump isn't tweeting. That's their entire view of the world. At least Trump isn't tweeting. And that's it. That's really what they that's what it's all public relations. They don't believe that it's they don't believe climate change is an existential dilemma. If they did, they would have either voted on the Green New Deal resolution or turned it into a bill that they could vote for. But then they just water it down, and then they say, well, it's the most ambitious effort yet to combat climate change. It's like, well, you just ended economic activity. Inflation is at 7.5%. Jerome Powell and the Fed, they pumped trillions along with Congress. So with fiscal and monetary stimulus, you had $10 trillion? And I talk about this in my Federalist article. C. Murph, Laughing Dog, and Monique. Thank you so very, very much. As always, Monique. And so you want to combat climate change right after you ended economic activity? Right after you pushed and you single-handedly caused the demand for fossil fuels to go to record highs. Now we have Russia, Ukraine, and that's pushing the price of oil to over $100. So it's like, if you utilized the Red Scare tactics that they embraced, then you can easily say, well, what does the Kremlin have on Trump? I mean, on Biden. So it's like this is an example. You have the situation where they keep claiming, like, if it's Russian interference or Russian propaganda or climate change or everything they claim to stand for, the Democratic Party, the antithesis of what they claim to stand for takes place. They say that they care about wealth inequality. Well, they cause the poverty, and they cause the poverty. They cause the poverty by shutting down, ending economic activity. So there you go. What on earth is going on? I have no clue what's going on. So if you look at the Sussman indictment, just look at the Sussman indictment. It says, it's pretty clear. If you look, let's see. If you look, let's see, page 3. In connection with this is interesting too. In connection with his representation of DNC as a victim of a hack, but the DNC never gave its, the DNC never gave. You are postulating that Durham. I don't even know what's going on. Let's see. I know I was right about everything. That Clinton would lose to Trump. I was right about that. That we'd have a stock market crash. We're seeing that. And that's unfortunately going to take place. I was right about that. I was right about the Durham probe heating up and indicting more people. We'll see that. So, anyway. No, I never said Durham. Never said Durham hacked Trump. Durham is defending Trump. Here you have, it's right here in the indictment. And so I started the first hour on this on the McCarthy era because I wanted people to make the correlation. What Durham is doing is he's trying to find out why we recreated a McCarthy era. So Democrats, what they did was recreate. They paid to recreate the McCarthy era. They paid to recreate the McCarthy era. And they did so by Laughing Dog, thank you. Seymour, thank you. Monique Smith, thank you. They did so by paying attorneys. To basically acquire non-public data with the help of tech executives. Kessler, you still sticking to your 10,000 Bitcoin price after another South American country takes it as legal tender? I don't, and that's what I'm trying to say is, Kessler, I don't think, I'm not trying to, my critique or my prediction or whatever it is, I'm not making any negative statement about Bitcoin, and I'm not saying that it's not important, and I'm not saying it won't be important in the future, because it will be. And I also respect the philosophy behind it. So I do agree with you, Kessler, that in the future it's going to be very important, even more so than it is now. But when the market tanks, every institution that has already pumped a great deal of money in Bitcoin will take their money out. Because when the market tanks, and we're going to see it this year, like I predicted, and we're seeing it already. I mean, the Dow is down 2,000 points. The Nasdaq's been pummeled the past month and a half or so. The institutions, hedge funds, all of these big, we want to call them whales or big, institutional investors, and all the money that was invested in anything speculative. And Bitcoin is viewed as speculative. It's not a hedge to inflation, although people think it is. It's more of a speculative investment. Anything speculative is going to tank. And so when I say it's going to go down to 10,000, that's not a critique of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies or the philosophy behind it, Kessler, because I probably agree with you a great deal about the philosophy behind Bitcoin. What I do think is that because I think that because the market's going to tank, people will want they'll want to just pull their money out of anything that is speculative, and I think that's going to because there's also deflation, so people will want to get out of stocks because they will, in their portfolios, have lost 40 to 50 to 60%, which people should. If you're about to retire, you should not be in stocks right now. There's no reason to be in stocks right now. There's no reason at all. There's no reason to be in stocks right now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, ladies and gentlemen? Can you hear me? So if we are in a speculative space with Bitcoin, it's becoming, yeah, but I mean, it becoming legal tender doesn't mean that it's not speculative. I mean, there are currencies that, because of inflation within countries become, you know, not worthless, but lose value, um, rapidly lose value. So I'm not saying that it's not going to be important in the future. I'm saying that it will be a financial casualty of the stock market crash. So, Monique, thank you again. Let's see. Um, everything is going to crash. Everything is going to crash. And that's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. But that is what takes place. Um, that is what takes place, ladies and gentlemen, when you know when you push to end the United States economy. The United States economy was doing very well. Yeah, I mean, I mean, like, look, Bitcoin is the wave of the future in many respects. Although lots of everybody from the Federal Reserve to big companies like Facebook and Twitter, well, Twitter won't be around in 5 or 6 years. But there's a lot of people that want to do away with Bitcoin. But I do think that it'll be very important in the future. I think cryptocurrencies will be important. But then you have this bizarre, like the Fed's going to come out with its own digital currency, and so it's like very bizarre. Central banks are going to come out with their own digital currencies. Uh, but yeah, I mean, short term, within a year or two, it'll experience a huge drop, and I think it'll drop to 10,000 because I think the Dow will get to 20,000. Good spirits, hello. Um, I told people that Clinton would lose to Trump. Um, I told people we're going to experience a devastating economic catastrophe, and we're seeing it right now. The stock market, unfortunately, will crash, but we're heading into a recession. Um, couple things here and there. It's like, well, can't be right about everything. But I told people the Trump Russia nonsense was completely fabricated, and we're seeing that with the Durham probe special counsel. And I mean, a lot of the things, it's like I've been spot on, and the millennial CNN, see what CNN and MSNBC, if you look at what they talk about, and then you go to, let's say, a you know million sub to 3-4 million sub liberal channel on YouTube, it'll be the same thing. They're like millennial CNN will talk about the same thing that CNN talks about. They're just going to do it in a different format or presentation. It's really no different. So there's CNN, and the audience for CNN is primarily people in their 50s and 60s. People in their That McCarthy video was "Have you no sense of decency?" So it was, "Have you no sense of decency, Sir Welsh McCarthy?" So let's see. Um, Again, the live stream. Sorry about that. The live stream kicked people off. It happens a lot of times. I don't know why. I don't know why it happens, but it happens, unfortunately, quite frequently. So, Kessler! I think current events are going to drive more retail buyers for Bitcoin. This stuff in Canada must. I agree with you. The second part for sure. Unfortunately, I agree with. When you look at what's taking place, and it's like, I think Kessler. This is a fleeting moment in history. I don't think that this is. I do not think that. I don't think that we're going to look back at this and say that there were any leaders in the Democratic Party that really stood for anything. There is nobody within the Democratic Party that, you look and it's like, Biden has, let's look at his approval ratings really quickly. Yeah, 41%, I don't believe. I don't believe 41% of people approve of Biden, but that's 538. Near 40%. So what? 30. Yeah, I don't believe that. And you have to also understand that, like, all of media is propping this man up. So all of media is propping this man up. Let's see here. Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? I will be back in a couple of hours. This stream keeps on freezing, but be here tonight at probably around 9:30, 9:45, probably 9:30 or so, 9:30 for the live stream, ladies and gentlemen. And be here tonight to my super chat. I cannot thank you enough, ladies and gentlemen. Monique, everyone here, Kessler, everyone here, thank you. Be here tonight at around 9:30. We'll have the live stream, and I will see you tonight. Everybody, Eric, Luke, thank you to my super chat. Thank you. This live stream keeps, going back and forth. But you know what? Hopefully the stream will be better tonight.